So hi everyone, happy Friday. It's Friday again. Welcome to another discovery session with Efficiency Canada and Friends. I'm Natalie Irwin, Director of Stakeholder Engagement here at Efficiency Canada. I hope you're looking forward to the weekend, and it's actually going to be May 1st tomorrow. And so for those of you that were around during the turn of the century in 2000, tomorrow is a day that your social media is going to be inundated with the NSYNCs. It's going to be May posts that we start to see just for fun. So I'm looking forward to May tomorrow, as well as the tulips and everything that's going to come out. So before we get started, a reminder to everyone that our guest speaker will present for approximately 20 minutes, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or raise your hand and I'll unmute you to ask your questions once the presentations are over. We do have a hard stop at 12:45 p.m. Eastern time, so that everyone can go back to finish their lunch, breakfast, afternoon snack, midnight snack, depending where you are in the country or in the world. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mike Singleton, Executive Director for Sustainable Buildings Canada, and Marc, Director of the Office of Sustainability of Energy Management at the University of Toronto, who are joining us this week. Thanks for joining us, Mike and Marc.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, and welcome everyone. Quite happy to be here. So I'm going to kick this off. I'll just be 5 or 6 minutes or so, and then I'm going to turn it over to Marc. Marc is going to work my slides for me. So Marc, if you wouldn't mind. There we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about a collaboration between Sustainable Buildings Canada and a number of universities, including the University of Toronto, as relates to new activity for SBC called the Better Buildings Boot Camp. I'll turn it over to Marc after a few minutes, and he's going to talk about the Zero Carbon Campus and how that relates to my presentation. Is one of the buildings that we focused on at the boot camp. Indeed, it's one of the buildings on the campus. SBC has, as a nonprofit, has kind of an obligation to support the next generation of high performance building designers. And as part of a number of things that we do to under that initiative, 6 years ago we started having bursaries. So each year we identify 3 deserving students who get a bursary from us. One of our other activities that we kicked off last year is what we call the Better Buildings Boot Camp, which is a partnership between SBC and a number of local universities. So the idea of the boot camp was to introduce the students, grad students, to some actual design activities using a real project, and that real project is the U of T data science building. It's a recognition that much of what students may be learning as part of their grad work, is grounded in academia, and we feel it's important to expose them kind of to the real world as relates to how professionals actually work on green buildings and designs of green buildings. So we wanted to bring together a diverse group of students into a design activity, recognizing that ultimately all fields of study have interest in the outcome when you're talking about high performance buildings. SBC has been delivering integrated design workshops since our inception. We have done over 500 of those in the last 10 years. Intrinsic in the integrated design concept is collaboration across various fields and how that might improve the final design, because buildings are complex and decisions made in one area ultimately affect things in another area. The other thing we really wanted to do, as I indicated, was forge some closer ties between academia and professionals in the green built environment. And we felt we were able to accomplish that over a week-long Better Buildings Boot Camp, a week-long of study. And on that basis, we'll be expanding the program and delivering it again this year. And ultimately, we feel this is a really strong initiative, and there's no reason it couldn't be delivered more broadly engaging a wide variety of institutions across the country and design professionals who work in this sector. So we had a little organizing team consisting of representatives from SBC. We had a program manager, Sage Living, and then we had the 3 local universities plus OCAD who participated as part of our team. We, through our Savings by Design Integrated Design Workshop activity, we have a roster of 300 or 400 design professionals. We were able to reach out and engage those individuals as part of that, and they actually led many of the sessions that were a part of the boot camp. And then we had a large U of T team, particularly as relates to the data science building and that design that is ongoing. We had 41 graduate students participating, representing the 4 institutions and across a broad range of fields of study. So obviously you can't see that, but that was just an indication of how jam-packed the week was. It was a week-long set of activities. We placed students in groups, ensuring that it was multidisciplinary. So we had, building science people, engineers, sociology, philosophy people, all of them mixed up in different groups, recognizing that everyone has something important to say, and there are influence across fields of study. We focused on the Data Science Center as our demonstration project. We had keynote speakers talking about integrated design and integrated project delivery. We had a variety of plenary sessions delivered by design professionals, like I said. We included a couple of sessions on COVID response because obviously that was topical and timely. And then ultimately it culminated on the 5th day, which is not shown on the schedule, which was a full day design workshop where the students got to put into practice what they had learned during the week and kind of shadow the design professionals as we worked on that data science building. And just to tell you, for that building, what we did was we identified a variety of sustainability initiatives and energy performance improvements that might be made on the design, and demonstrated 60% energy reduction versus the current Ontario Building Code. And for those of you who are familiar with the code, it is fairly aggressive. So we demonstrated huge potential improvement, which obviously fits in well to the zero carbon strategy for the campus that Marc's going to talk about in a minute. For this year, we're doing the boot camp again in 3rd week of August. We've invited some other institutions to participate. Seneca College, George Brown, and Carleton have joined the team. We're hoping to expand the number of students that will be participating, and we're looking at including 4th year undergrads as well. We're actually hoping to have an affordable housing project that we will work on. So we think that is obviously timely and topical. We have a huge need for new affordable housing in the city. And so we think it would be kind of neat if we were able to do that. We will be looking for our subject matter experts to kind of include a more human-centered focus for the design. So it's not just about sort of the technical details, and we'll be looking for ways to implement that this year. So it's an exciting project. We really hope to expand it again. It's easy to replicate, and we had initially anticipated doing this as a live in-person activity. It was a challenge to switch gears and deliver it virtually, but at the end of the day, we were able to engage a much wider variety and a much more dispersed group of individuals using the virtual platform. So we may just continue to do it that way in the future. I've taken up my 5 minutes. It's important for you to hear about what the campus is doing and how this particular building kind of might fit into that. So I'm going to turn it over to Marc, and I'll keep a watch if there's any questions for me. And certainly we have some time at the end to have a discussion. So thanks, everybody. The boot camp information is on our website, and we'll send out a link to that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. That boot camp was definitely a very valuable exercise, and I was very happy to be able to participate in that boot camp last August. So thank you for that. Looking forward to the next one. So good afternoon. My name is Marc Couture. I'm the Director of Sustainability and Energy Management at the University of Toronto. And I'll be talking to you today about the University of Toronto's commitment for action on climate change, and as well going through a bit of a review of our low carbon action plan. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of contextual information. So to give you an idea of the size and scale of the University of Toronto, we are spread across 3 campuses. We educate more than 88,000 students, which makes us the largest university in North America. We employ more than 20,000 faculty and staff members, giving us a total population that exceeds 100,000 people on a daily basis in normal times, of course. In terms of our carbon footprint, the U of T is the 3rd largest GHG emitter amongst institutional emitters within Ontario's broader public sector, which is sort of a dubious bronze medal for us, and we're trying to very actively hand over that bronze medal to someone else. When you start to compare the U of T's greenhouse gas footprint, our reduction target by 2030 of 59,000 tons alone is larger than the total annual emissions of any other Ontario university. So I think that's important for context. And while we are efficient and we strive to be even more efficient, we still have a very significant footprint due to our scale. We emit more than many local auto manufacturing plants and other industry players. If you see here, we have Sanofi, Honda, Toronto Pearson Airport, Ford, GM, Toyota, and you see us at the bottom. We are trying to build our action plan on our existing leadership and operational sustainability. We've taken great strides to be very sustainable, and we've been awarded Canada's Greenest Employer. It says here 6 times, but last week we actually were awarded for a 7th time. We have one of North America's largest utilities reduction revolving funds to support energy efficiency and sustainability projects, and we're building on more than 100 years of district energy operation. And you can see on the right here, since 2011, we've achieved some pretty significant numbers in terms of utility savings, GHG savings, as well as water savings. We've set a commitment at U of T to reduce our GHG emissions by a minimum of 37% by 2030. And this is based on a 1990 GHG baseline. And I think that 1990 level is important, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. We're also part of the University Climate Change Coalition through Second Nature. We joined in 2018, and we joined 19 other universities in North America that have made the same commitment. And our low carbon action plan is a response from university operations to achieve our commitment on climate change. So going back to our baseline here of 1990, the reason this is so significant is that our emissions actually rose quite a bit between 1990 and today. So if we were basing our baseline more on a 2005 or a 2010, this would reflect closer to 65 to 70% reduction. And this is also for us, this is net of growth. So it does make a big difference for us referencing 1990. To look at the bigger picture here, we have our 3 campuses. We have Mississauga, we have Scarborough, we have St. George in downtown Toronto. And you can see the relative proportions of the GHG footprint for each campus, with St. George taking the lion's share of those emissions at 83%. Our low carbon action plan focuses on a strategy or framework here where we're looking to tackle 3 buckets: the production, distribution, as well as the consumption on the demand side. And we follow several principles for this. First principle, of course, is to focus on reduction. A conservation first approach, obviously, because the cleanest and cheapest energy is the energy we do not consume. Principle 2 is to balance carbon with cost. So we could address our carbon issue largely by switching to electricity because it's 4.5 times cleaner than gas. However, with a Class B rate, it's actually 11 times more expensive. So this obviously has to be balanced in a responsible manner to decarbonize our campus. Principle 3 is to also try and go beyond our own assets, to try and reach beyond our assets. Our district system supplies some of the federated colleges and also external clients, and approximately 12% of our emissions come from assets we do not directly own or influence. So we have to work collaboratively with these external partners to try and reduce our emissions overall. We also, as Principle 4, want to foster innovative solutions. We definitely want to leverage the campus as a living lab model to foster partnerships with our academic community and achieve carbon reductions. We also want to develop external partnerships to implement innovative solutions to our carbon challenges. Beginning the process, so in 2019, the Greenhouse Gas Campus Retrofit Program, we implemented a project at the tri-campus level worth roughly $15 million. And we completed 12 projects within 1 year to achieve carbon reductions just shy of the number you're seeing here. So our actual results now that we closed out our M&V program, we're just shy of the 8,600 tons annually. If we look at our framework here, we'll start with the production end of things, and we'll see how we plan to achieve our targets. The first project here is a project that's ongoing currently in King's College Circle in the heart of our front campus, our historic core. We're currently drilling over 350 boreholes to a depth of over 850 feet. And this will help us achieve a reduction in our GHG emissions as it supports the energy from our central heating plant. We're doing geothermal on all 3 campuses. The King's College Circle example that I just spoke about is targeting 15,000 ton reduction, while geothermal at the other 2 campuses at UTM and UTSC combined to give us a total of 16,465 metric tons of reduction annually. So here you see a test well being drilled in our historic core in King's College Circle. It's projected to providing heating to the following buildings at MSB, at CCBR, at Leslie Dan, Fitzgerald, also at Wahlberg and BCIT, as well as providing some snow melting in our landmark project as part of the redevelopment of that area. Also under the production category, we're aiming to double our renewable solar energy on our St. George campus, as well as the Mississauga and Scarborough campuses. While reducing electrical consumption doesn't have as huge of a GHG impact, this will still give us a minimum of 200 tons annually and support our goals towards renewable energy. Another innovative solution is that we're looking to try and collaborate with our campus innovators on carbon capture and sequestration. We have a team called CERT, led by Professor David Sinton and Ted Sargent, and they've been competing in the Carbon X Prize. And they've successfully been able to go from lab scale up to a prototype scale, and we're one of the 5 finalists as part of the Carbon X Prize. And they are just returning home to the U of T campus now with their skid. And we hope to implement this even at a larger scale as part of our decarbonization efforts. If we look to the second category here in terms of distribution, we're looking to leverage our 100-year-old district energy system and to try and target specific improvements to try and reduce emissions further by about 2,200 tons per year. Our central plant is a key piece of this because it does distribute and provide heating to over 80% of our campus. and also over 20% of our electricity needs. So tackling the central plant efficiency is key to our strategy here. So one of the pieces here is to the central plant waste heat recovery. We want to increase the capacity and the amount of waste heat that we can recover from our central plant and distribute this to adjacent buildings that can consume low temperature hot water. And this component here should give us roughly 2,000 tons. At UTSC South Campus Phase 2, they're doing a steam to hot water conversion, converting campus buildings from steam to hot water. Benefits here obviously include improved delivery, controls, comfort, and reduced GHG emissions. And they're hoping to achieve 260 tons per year with some of these steam to hot water conversions. When we look at the consumption side, this is really your demand side or your building side. And it is critical as part of our overall plan. Here you can see for the St. George campus, we look at the GHG intensity of our buildings. You know, right now we're at an average of 69 kilograms CO2 per square meter as an annual average. But to achieve our target, we really need to be at 32 or lower. So we're looking at more than halving this intensity right now. One of the ways we're planning on achieving this is through our deep energy retrofit program. Internally, we have a group called the USCO team, comprised of people from my office of sustainability, the operations and utility folks, finance, as well as property management. And we're working collaboratively to identify deep energy retrofit projects, which can be funded by our, well, in part at least, by our revolving fund, as well as through our deferred maintenance budgets to really affect deep transformational change. Through this program, we're looking to achieve a minimum 6,600 tons of reduction annually. On the demand side as well, we're also looking at opportunities for internal heat recovery. We have a project here at our McLennan Physics building where we're going to be using a heat pump to capture the heat generated by an IT data center and use that to offset the heating requirements for the overall building. We're referring to this as our computational boiler. And this is targeted to reduce emissions by 700 tons annually with this one initiative. Another key pillar in our strategy here is our new performance standards that were launched in July 2020. So we're sort of mirroring the Toronto Green Standard and their requirements for building performance by having our own version of the Toronto Green Standard internally at U of T. And this combines sort of best practices from a number of different standards or codes, including LEED, including the TGS, the WELL standard, and different ASHRAE standards. And we're essentially requiring all new construction, major renovations, as well as minor renovations on our campus to meet a very stringent target in terms of overall energy use intensity, GHG intensity, as well as thermal energy intensity. And this will really go a very big way to mitigating the impacts of growth in our campuses, as well as ensuring that every dollar spent through our deferred maintenance and operational budgets are very much aligned with our long-term vision and targets by ensuring that any renovations get done in a very sustainable manner. Another example is our St. George Academic Wood Tower. This is designed to achieve a GHG intensity performance of between 14 and 15 kilograms per square meter. As you recall, we were looking to be well below our 32 kilograms. And this is another example of how our performance standards are helping to mitigate the impacts of growth. As well, we have our new St. George Spadina Sussex residence, which is aiming to have an ultra low GHG intensity. I believe we're just over 6 kilograms per GSM for this building, making it one of the lowest emitting residences on campus. Another example of demand side is a lighting conversion. We currently have one project that is tackling LED lighting conversions. Lighting is one of those things that as soon as you've done a conversion, there's new technology and you can start all over again. Specifically because they typically have very low paybacks, making them very attractive projects for reducing energy consumption as well as GHG emissions. We're currently replacing roughly 35,000 lights on campus to LED as part of this phase one that's ongoing, and hoping to launch a phase two to replace even more bulbs for a combined replacement of over 75,000 bulbs from now till September. The result here should be a minimum of 1,000 tons reduction per year. Carbon stock and sequestration. U of T properties including St. George, UTM, and UTSC, Hart House Farm, and Koffler Scientific Reserve at Jokers Hill and Gull Lake have a significant number of forests and trees that have been capturing and storing carbon for decades. We're doing research to calculate the number of trees and the capacity for sequestration, and hope to deploy active forest management to generate a net reduction of close to 1,100 tons per year. We're also actively looking to partner with our academics and our faculty here to look at opportunities around experiential learning, as well as the campus as a living lab, to try and integrate our reduction or savings into the curriculum as much as we can. Here we had a solution where we were looking at fume hood testing. Fume hoods in our campus, because our campus is very research and lab intensive, play a key role in the sustainability and the carbon reduction. If we want to look at our pathway to 2030 at a glance here, you can see that the design standards play a big piece in mitigating the growth, because this was where our growth would be without the standards. So it substantially mitigates the impacts of growth. And then our geo exchange here in pink will have a big impact as well by providing 15,000 ton reduction, which is St. George. And then if you look at the rest here, the GGRP project we just finished, and building optimization, you can see how we're going to plan to get our overall 45,000 ton reduction. Another really significant piece to this is how we're measuring our carbon reduction. So we've made a commitment to reduce 80% by 2050, but this is absolute. This is net of growth, and this is without using any offsets. So what we're trying to do is trying to hit minimum 80%. The last 20% will be U of T owned offsite generation for renewables, and will not include any third-party offsets, as I mentioned. And this is a little bit different than how some of our peers are doing it. I think that this does make it quite challenging. Also, in light of the fact that we're looking at probably about 90% campus growth from now till 2050. So those performance standards are going to come in, be very much a key piece towards 2050. If we look at our carbon and energy master plan objectives, we sort of have three pillars here where we're looking to grow our campus, support the growth and the expansion, support the renewal of existing buildings, as well as to green our entire campus in light of our objectives for 2050. For the renewal and the growth, we're also looking at incorporating reliability, redundancy, and resiliency as core tenets, and trying to do this in a very responsible way. So we have projects that are ongoing right now, and will continue over the next 29 years to hit our climate positive target. That's all I have for you this afternoon.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marc, and Mike will invite you back to join us for the question and answer period now. Marc, have to say that watching your slide presentation, there are some really good looking buildings at U of T. I can't wait to get back to the city to come check them out in person and do some Instagramming. So before we open the floor to questions, a reminder to people, two ways to ask. You can raise your hand and I can unmute you, and you can ask your question yourself. I see there's already people populating the Q&A box, so I'll get to those questions in a minute. A reminder as well that we do record the sessions and put them up on our website if you missed anything. Also, if you want to connect with Marc and Mike directly, you can email info@efficiencycanada.org, and we can, or myself, and I can connect you with them if you have questions that we don't get to today, or just to have questions in general that you don't want to ask with almost 100 people watching you. So we'll open the floor now. I see that there is one here from Patrick. This is for Marc. Is the higher GHG footprint for St. George more a result of size or age?
Good question, Patrick. Thank you, Natalie. I'd say that it's mostly a result of the size, but also age does come into play. The average age of the buildings on the St. George campus is over 80 years. So dealing with historic buildings does have pose a bit of a challenge, but it's sort of a double-edged sword too, because the older buildings don't have a lot of ventilation, if any, and that also means that they consume a lot less energy. So they're leaky, they're inefficient, but they're not huge consumers to start with. So it's a combination of size and age, but I would say mostly size.
Definitely, and you're working towards the leakiness part of it for sure. I'm wondering, there's a question here from Keith, is if fresh air is a major consumption for building heat, what standards are you working towards?
Well, I did mention that we're looking at the WELL standard, as well as we're trying to shadow LEED Silver certification and looking to achieve obviously ASHRAE 55 and ASHRAE 62.1. So, on top of that, we do have specific requirements because our campus is very lab intensive. So we work very closely with our internal health and well-being and occupational health and safety teams to make sure we have the highest standards available.
Perfect. And somewhat a related question, I think I'm going to get this right, is from David here. How does the university's coalition differ from the ASHRAE and their STAR program? And it's okay to say you don't know.
The specific difference is the coalition is really aimed around the very specific targets and making commitments, whereas the ASHRAE STARS program is more of a reporting and a certification program for rankings. So there's definitely a lot of overlap there in terms of what we're trying to achieve. But I think that the ASHRAE sort of has a much more granular breakdown with specific sort of targets and measuring.
Perfect, thanks for that. Vasily has a question on how do you prioritize the GHG reduction for projects?
I would say a number of different ways. Definitely metrics like dollars per GHG saved are key here. But we are doing this over sort of a life cycle approach. So not looking necessarily just at first year, but looking at more of a 20-year timeframe definitely helps us by looking at NPV and looking at that dollars per GHG over a life cycle. As most of you are all aware, the escalation rate of the carbon tax in Canada is going to be quite aggressive from now till 2030, where it'll reach $170 per ton. So it's very important for us to take that into account as we're planning and prioritizing projects, is to look at that escalation rate and what the costs will be for fossil fuel consumption into 2030 and beyond.
That's great. And a question here for Mike. You mentioned your boot camp. Is it for grad students only or undergrad students able to take this?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So last year we limited it to grad students. This year we've included 2 colleges. So we will throw it open, I think, to undergrad students, but with the recognition that they, they might be 4th year students. We're looking for people who ultimately are going to kind of specialize in whatever field of study that they're in. But we've got some colleges involved this year, so there will be a smattering of undergrad students. And if you're interested, the institutions are kind of stick handling the application process, but we'll have more about that on our website. Thank you.
Perfect. And is it too late for any institutions that are listening here today that aren't participating? Is it too late for them to get involved and reach out to you?
They can reach out. We've kind of got a pretty full program, and we've got 7 institutions participating, but if they're really interested, I'd love to make room for them. Might be too late to participate in the advisory board. However, we'd certainly consider it. And like I said earlier, there's a huge replication potential for this. Ultimately, I'd love to see this, we sort of incubate this effort and that others pick it up and run with it and make it available more broadly.
Perfect. We'd love to see that for sure. A question here for Marc is great presentation. I'm sure that applies to Mike too. Does U of T intend to fully electrify existing building stock? Popular question.
Yeah, great question. Electrification is definitely the theme these days, with the institutions looking to achieve carbon neutrality or beyond. So that definitely applies to us. We're looking to transition our central steam plant to a more of a nodal approach, interconnected nodes, which will rely more heavily on geothermal and heat pump technology as we transition towards low temperature hot water and away from high temperature, high pressure hot water and steam heat. So that's definitely a key tenet. Is it going to be 100%? I don't think it'll be 100%, but we're trying to get as close as we can. Yes.
Thank you. And then a question related to COVID, actually, Marc, is how has COVID impacted existing GHG reduction plans? For example, are you adding or increasing ventilation at all?
Yeah, great question. So COVID is tricky. And again, I think COVID is a bit of a double-edged sword. Our campus right now has an occupancy of about 5% of what it typically would be with all staff and all students. So, not having that 90,000 person population on campus, obviously takes away a lot of the heat gains that would be associated with physical occupancy. So that means that in the winter, we've had to supplement that with additional heating, which has a negative impact on our emissions. But on the other side, these people aren't using equipment and lighting and other things as much. So that's had a positive impact. The net impact is almost a wash, I would say. So that's kind of where we're at with COVID. We have had to increase ventilation to be safe. And as we sort of measure and learn more about COVID, we'll be continually adjusting as required. But obviously, increased ventilation requires increased humidification, increased heating, and those kinds of things. So we're trying to balance it as best we can with reductions in ventilation, obviously for unoccupied spaces, to offset the 5 or 10% of spaces that require additional ventilation.
Thank you for that. It's nice to hear that it's at least a wash. A question here from Duncan is, will your district heat system be primarily driven by geothermal? And is it interconnected with the deep lake water cooling system, so DLWC? And if yes, do you have a rough percentage target for the deep lake water cooling system and geothermal?
Great question, Duncan. So our district heating system will try and leverage as much ground source energy as possible. With our King's College Circle project right now, as well with the other geothermal projects we have on the go, U of T is going to be Canada's largest operator of urban geo-exchange systems. So that's a big one for us. We hope to continue to drill more boreholes and to leverage that opportunity as much as possible. But the reality is that there's just not enough geo-exchange available on our physical campus to support our needs. So we're going to have to look at a combination of things. Unfortunately, I don't believe that the deep lake cooling network from Enwave reaches the U of T campus. So we are not planning to connect to that as part of our plan currently. You never know, things could change, but we are looking at other sources of heat. Internal heat recovery within the buildings, like I mentioned, at McLennan Labs with recovering heat from the data center. as well as a lot of active heat recovery technology with various different heat sources. So we feel that should be able to complement the geo-exchange capacity we have on our campus and support our needs to decarbonize.
Just a follow-up question onto that one. Do you have any plans to use short or long-term energy storage?
Absolutely. So we're looking at a variety of opportunities right now for energy storage. There's some very interesting technologies in terms of thermal storage for heating and cooling. Cooling, that's been around for centuries, literally. Our convocation hall, which was built over 100 years ago, at one point had ice storage in the basement, where it was literally just big blocks of ice that were put in the basement, and that cold air was forced up into the occupied space above it to provide some level of comfort and cooling. So we're looking at solutions like that for more modernized ice storage, as well as heat storage, and also looking at some form of electrical storage, whether that's batteries or other. So I think that's going to play a key role moving forward as we try and optimize our energy use.
Definitely. I would say that's really interesting. I haven't heard, well, I personally haven't heard of that before, but it's probably an old system that's new again. Full circle, right?
Everything old is
I'm
new
just
again.
going to end yeah, exactly. And I noticed more people are doing like ceiling fans and opening windows, which is nice to see as well, making a comeback. So on that note, I'm just noticing the time. So I'm just going to end the questions there. Again, if you want to connect with Mike or Marc, feel free to email Efficiency Canada and we can make the connection. Thank you again. I'm just gonna, if you join us next week, just to quickly note, I'm actually excited to say that I'm going to be joined next week by two of my colleagues here at Efficiency Canada, who are going to share a project that we've been working on for several months now called Codes for Climate, which is a toolkit that we have created for any building code advocates or wannabe advocates that would like to know what they can do to help accelerate the adoption of Canada's building energy codes. So the official launch is on May 4th, which oddly is in keeping with our meme theme today of May the 4th be with you. So next week, again on Friday, we're going to be joined by Kevin and Kirsten, who are going to go over the Codes for Climate toolkit. So thank you again, Marc and Mike, for joining us this week for a fantastic presentation. I look forward to having you join us next week as viewers, and look forward to your questions. I hope everyone enjoys the weekend. Take care, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye.